2 weeks ago, I traveled internationally for work. Now, traveling internationally sounds glamorous, but I really didn't go that far. I went to Canada. For many of you, that's a common trip. A bunch of you here live in Montreal, or come from Montreal. The other day, Ben went to and from Toronto in the same day. No big deal. Detroit is, I think, the only place in the continental U.S. where you can look south to Canada. We're really close. I wish it had gone that smoothly for me. I get to the border, and the border agent says, why are you going to Canada? I said, for work. So what are you doing for work? I have meetings. Meetings with who? I said, meetings with the government. That must have been the wrong thing to say. That must have triggered some kind of alarm back in the immigration center. Because everything changed after that. If you're meeting with the government, where's your documentation? I said, what do you mean by documentation? Where are your papers? What, you think I have like a scroll from Napoleon with like a handwritten calligraphy with a wax seal? I have emails. What? Go to the immigration center. So for the first time in my life, I get moved from the regular line and I have to go to the back room somewhere else. A windowless, stuffy waiting room. There were other people there too, and let me tell you, these other people, they did not have their papers. They did not have their papers. And I waited for my turn, and finally my turn came, and I went to this bulletproof glass partition. On the other side was this burly, bearded, unsmiling Canadian. Same conversation. Why are you going to Canada? Meeting with who? Meeting with the government. Where's your documentation? Where are your papers? I said I think I have an email that's inviting me to this meeting. Do you want me to look for that? And I find it on my phone, and I slip the phone underneath the divider. He takes it. He scrolls through the whole thing. He says, okay, you could go. It gave me a little bit of a taste of what it was like to be living in a different time, when a Jew could be stopped at any moment for their papers, and if they didn't have their papers, bad things could happen. But all of us here now, are at a border patrol. We're at a border crossing. We're not trying to travel from country A to country B. We're trying to travel in time. From Tafshin Pei Daled to Tafshin Pei Hey. And it's a very long line. Kol Ba'ei Oilam Oivrin Lefanav Kibnei Maran. All creatures are in line, single file, like sheep, waiting to pass through the gates to the next year. And the infinite intelligence, the Rabbanu Shalom, looks down when it comes our turn and says, you want to go to Tafshin Pei Hey? Yeah. Why? What do you plan to do in Tafshin Pei Hey? What do you plan to do in the next year? What's our answer going to be? Where are your papers? Where's your documentation that shows what you're going to be doing next year? And that's why we come prepared every year with the shofar. The other people in line don't come with that. We come with the shofar to say, this is the day Hashem, Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim, you infused within us godliness, and our purpose in the next year is to bring that godliness out. We blow into the shofar without words, without plans, just to let that godliness shine through. That's our purpose. That's our goal. We get so caught up in other priorities throughout the year. Our jobs, our families. But at the core of all of it, we want to let that godliness within us shine through. Let me give you one example, one thing we can do differently to help reset our priorities. And as we hear that sound of that shofar, let's let everything else melt away and hone in on that essence. One of the big challenges people have today, is bedtime. Bedtime is something we dread. People put the kids down. That's a new expression. People use melatonin. They drug the kids. It's a negotiation. Well, you did it last night. I should do it this night. I did it last night. You should do it this night. Let me try to give you a different perspective on bedtime. When you think about what's really important in life and what's not. Leading up into the Second World War, the Jews of the time saw what was happening, that they were going to be sent away and not to return. They wanted to save their children, and so they handed them over to their Goyish neighbors, who eventually turned them over to monasteries. And after 5-6 years, the war was over. Parents never returned. These Jewish kids had been 5-6 years living in Christian monasteries. And there were some, like Reb Lazer Silver from Cincinnati, who made it their mission to try and recover these Jewish children. And he traveled to Alsace-Lorraine, where there was a big monastery, region near the border with France and Germany. And there's a big monastery which was reported to have many Jewish children. He goes there, looks at the list he asks the priest who runs the monastery, says, "Can I see the roster of children here?" He says, "Sure." So Rabbi Silver sees Miller. He says, "That's a Jew." Markovich, that's a Jew. Goes through the names and identifies which ones sound Jewish. The priest says, "No Jews. There's no Jews here." Miller, that's a German name. Markovich, that's a Russian name. So Rabbi Lazer Silver said, "Okay, let me come back at bedtime." The time we all try to avoid. Because I want to come back then. He says, "Okay, you'll come back at bedtime." So Rabbi Lazer Silver comes back when they're putting the kids to bed. And he says, "Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad." And all of a sudden, you hear cries coming from different parts of the room. "Mama, Mama, Mamushka, where are you?" After 5-6 years being surrounded by anything but Kedusha, what stayed with these children was their mother putting them to sleep with Shema Yisrael on their lips. You have an opportunity to do that. Tell me, is there something else in your day that has more value? That's more enduring? When all is said and done, isn't the goal we all have that our children follow along on our path, that we pass that on to our children and they pass it on to theirs? Aren't the jobs and the money and the house and the car and the shiurim that we attend, isn't that all secondary to that top goal? You have an opportunity to put your children to sleep as they're handing over their neshama, their breath that we blow into the shofar, back to their Creator, with Shema Yisrael on their lips. Is there something more enduring, with more value? As we listen to the shofar, remember, that's our documentation. That's our papers. And why do we want to head into Tafshin Pei Hey? Because we want to take that godliness that's within us and let it shine. Let it shine through to our children, to our families, and to all of Klal Yisrael.